I'm Hamilton van Breda. I'm head of retail sales at Prudential Investment Managers, and I am going to talk to you about rand volatility and the impact that has on consumers today. So currencies, as we all know, is a very, very volatile asset class, and it's really influenced by supply and demand factors. You know, if you demand more of something, the price of that particular asset or the currency is going to go up. But there are both external and also internal factors that influences the volatility of currency. So let's just start with some of the external factors. We know that Trump likes to tweet, and when he tweets, then the rand seems to move quite dramatically. And unfortunately, that has an impact on South African consumers. The others, so we've got these trade wars between the US and China. We've got Boris trying to hold his position in the UK. You know, you've got Brexit issues. But when this all happens, it has a very negative impact on emerging markets. And unfortunately, South Africa is an emerging market, so you tend to see massive currency fluctuations. A number of years ago, in 2017, December, over one weekend, we had three finance ministers. And the impact of that was that the rand depreciated quite dramatically in a space of 24 hours to 48 hours. And that again leaves foreign investors with some uncertainty as to who the finance minister is in South Africa. And of course, what happens? The rand starts to depreciate quite dramatically. When the rand depreciates, it has a negative impact on the consumer. So I'm going to try and demonstrate that. There are a number of tools that asset managers and investors use to determine the value of the rand. One is the real effective exchange rate of the rand, really looking at the basket of goods of South Africa, and you're comparing it to the same basket in, say, the States. And you look at the valuation of the two baskets, and the difference is effectively the difference between the currencies, the value of the currencies. So you can determine the value of the currency using things like the real effective exchange rate of the rand, or you can use something similar, which is the purchasing power parity. Another tool that some people do use, or commonly use, is what we call the Big Mac index. Not really that useful. If you look at the cost of a Big Mac today relative to what it costs, say, in the States, then you should see that the rand to the dollar should roughly about 6 to the dollar. So I don't think in our lifetime we're likely to see the rand at 6 to the dollar. But what happens is when you see the rand depreciate quite dramatically, it means effectively that the cost of our imports go up. So if you give an example of that, say for instance the oil price goes up, the rand depreciates, the cost of buying oil goes up. That translates into more expensive fuel. That translates into the cost of food that is being distributed. And at the end of the day, it's really inflation that goes up. You can protect yourself by virtue of the fact that you have an opportunity to invest in dollar-denominated global funds, or you can take the option of investing into rand feeder funds that feed into those global funds. So you can hedge your bets against currency fluctuations, volatilities, uncertainty, and thereby effectively making some money. So that's not the only way that you can hedge your bets or hedge these currency fluctuations, because in any equity portfolio or in any balanced portfolio, there's a very large exposure to our equity listed stocks. If you look at just the all-share index, 60 to 70% of the earnings that is derived on the index is derived from abroad. In other words, you're earning hard currency. So what happens is when the rand appreciates, when you convert those earnings into rand, it acts as a hedge against any sort of rand depreciation. So it's not always doom and gloom if you can't invest into rand feeder funds or global dollar denominated or sterling denominated funds, just by having an exposure to a pure equity investment or a balanced fund will also give you a hedge against sudden and massive rand depreciation. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you found that informative. But if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact our Client Services Center at Prudential or speak to your nearest financial advisor. Thank you.